Happy Sunday. We are going to talk about the power of manifestation, the power of gratitude, and the power of mantras. And I think it's a good time to do that today, Sunday, being a time of rest and reflection. I hopefully journaling, meditation, deep meditation, introspection as we approach the holidays and as we approach what it means to connect with those we love the most on the planet through the holidays, and how the holidays need to be played out this year. So I don't know if you do this, but before my eyes open, I should say, I wake up turning my chakras clockwise from my root chakra to my crown, 9 somatic chakras, and I spin them with the words thank you. And then the first thing I do is come to a sense of gratitude to what is with me, or what surrounds me, or what I am so grateful to have. In my case, my child, my animals, my blankets, my pillows, the window overlooking the sky, the blue sky and the white clouds. Believe it or not, this sets you into the assemblage point of receiving more from the universe, but you're not doing it for that, actually. Like, I don't if I do this, I'm going to get more money or whatever. That's not what I do. When I do it out of pure being blissed out over the most basic things and the most precious things all at once. And to do this as a habit is to not be destroyed by the universe. Well, not the universe, excuse me. I misspoke. By the current Earth's shackled energy by the 1%. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep hammering at the 1%. I did 3 videos, 3 lives on YouTube. Please go look at them. One of them, you should sit your man down when you listen to that one. It's about self-worth and bank accounts, and that's important. And when you come into a state of real, so listen, so you're sleeping, right? You might be getting up to take a piss, and then you go back to bed, and you're going in and out of dimensions. You might even be traveling into other realms, most likely. In some cases, if you're really getting activations, you might actually wake up in the middle of the night with your eyes closed, realizing they're working on your third eye. And you're going to see sacred geometry, explosion of colors, light codes, and so forth. I swear to God. And that's absolutely normal. You're being worked on. And you should say thank you. You should tell them thank you for working on me. Thank you for my upgrades. I'm so grateful to you. And you can fall back asleep. But as the morning walks on tiptoes towards you, you should make it a habit. And if that's not how you're waking up, then you are being controlled by other nefarious forces. If what I just described in the way one starts their morning is not your normal default button of self-realized awareness of your surroundings with your eyes closed and then open, you are being controlled. And so I would highly recommend you do that. And I would say to you, and I did this exercise early, I think it was early this year, it could have been last year, I don't remember, but I remember giving an exercise to people listening to me on a live where they had to come up with 20 things, but I'm going to up it to 23 things that you love about yourself. Physically, what you love about yourself physically, because that's important, what you love about yourself emotionally and spiritually, okay? And that should take no more than 5 minutes for you to come up with. And if you can't come up with 23 things, you are being controlled and you're being owned by nefarious forces. And I'm not kidding. And that's not to give you paranoia. That's for you to understand that the silent enemy is a program that is constantly hijacking your consciousness, your ability to ascend, your ability to consciously receive light codes of ascension and progression. And this is important. So some of the things that many of us do is that we do reach for mantras. A client just actually contacted me saying, is this the right book? And she was looking up a book I'd mentioned, and it made me think that maybe I should tell you again that some of the books you need to have in your library in both audible form and print are books by Thomas Ashley, Ashley Farrand, Farrand. And the first book would be Sacred Words of Power. Get both if you can. And I'm trying to remember, do I have the print? I'm trying to think if because some of these things have gone out of print because God bless his soul, he was a scholar of Sanskrit. He's passed away. And so I don't know why they're telling me to say this, but the gender wars, we all know what's going on, but the aging wars, the boomer wars against the Gen Xers, you have boomers you should fucking give your obeisances to, who have brought spirituality to the West. And Thomas Ashley Farrand was one of them. He went to India as a teenage, a young man, and studied from the great scholars in India in the 70s and brought back mantras. And he has a ream of set of books on various mantras, healing mantras, and this mantra and that mantra, right? And that's important. They're telling me also Cindy Dale. She's a very petite blonde who from the Midwest. Who again, don't judge a book by its cover. I don't know why people are doing that, but whatever. I guess they forget about reincarnation, which I think is funny. It's like, oh no, you don't look like the person, the teacher you should be. You're not wearing saris or flowing robes and crystal crowns. You actually look like you're doing casual business. You can't be a great teacher. But anyway, Cindy Dale has written some pretty hefty books. One of them is the complete book of chakras, which is pretty it's the size of a Gutenberg Bible. It's fucking, good luck. You can press your flowers. It's amazing. It's a hell of a book. And she has other books like one that I think is important to have in your library would be, and I'm not kidding when I say that, not to curse you in any way, but she has a book on chakras and cancer, which I think is interesting. And so between those two great teachers, you would be well to, really study these two teachers. There's another teacher that I'm still in the beginnings of that my beloved had turned me on to, Radha. Her name was Radha. And again, another boomer. Oh my God, boomers are our enemies. Okay, anyway, another boomer who went to India probably in the late 50s, early 60s, and studied with the great scholars, the great gurus of that time, and brought back some knowledge into the West. And I wish I could give credit to the person who said that, but they said that the great teachers would be masculines in the East, and the great teachers in the West would eventually become the women. Bringing the East to the West would be eventually women. And I really believe that's true. And that's why you're hearing a huge evolution and of the idea of the matriarchy. We're using those terms, but the high priestess is rising out of the ashes in the West. And once that happens in its full power, right? Once we start honoring some of the elders that actually went into the jungles of ignorance with their machetes, right? To clear new pathways for us, right? Once we know that we've always had indigos, which is connected with rebellion and anarchists, spiritual anarchists, right? Once you realize that, and that it's come throughout the ages, you'll realize that certain generations have produced more assholes or less assholes, but regardless, you'll always have assholes, okay? So you can't really look in anyone's culture or generation and really go to war with people like that. It's a dead end street. Rather, you should look at every individual as an individual and treat them according to how they approach you and how they treat you also, and go from there. But I do know that one of the problems that I saw, in this country is this absolute, and I'm going to say it, okay? Sorry if I offend you, but what can I do? This absolute lack of respect for culture. I did a whole live on culture and the chasm between civilization and culture. They're not the same. They're not intertwined at all. And in America in particular, okay? So we have boomers and we have people older than the boomer generation who came into this country as immigrants or were born here, second generation, third generation, whatever, who were the artists of the time. And what's beautiful about poets and painters like Georgia O'Keeffe and Grandma Moses, older women who painted way into their 90s, like apparently Grandma Moses started painting when she was in her 90s, is that we don't really protect the treasures of our culture. And how do we protect that? Well, we don't have communities for the elder artist to retire, and where we have a system of curating and caring for their art, when they're gone, when they've died. I just saw a video, which I reposted, you'll probably see it, of an older woman who came to this country, Ellis Island, at 10 years old, from Ukraine, and was a painter. And she died August of 2025, and she's robust. When you see her, you're like, you can't fathom that she's gone because she looks so healthy. But therein lies the power of some of our elders. That one day they're here, one day they're gone. They die in their sleep. They die sitting up. They're gone. They drop their bodies. And what concerned me was, where's her work? Like, okay, we know she's gone now. Where are her paintings? Where's the Guggenheim Museum? Where are these museums that are so eagerly to claw into getting as many donations as possible, but do absolutely nothing to protect the culture of a certain timeline? And so why am I going from gratitude to this? Because beauty, the aesthetics of art, of ballet, of theater, something that during this Shakespearean time, I hope you know, the rabble, the workers would go after work to go see a play, to hear an opera. And me and Andromeda Flame were talking about how in Italy, you would see guys in their dirty clothes, standing up, watching an opera. Culture is something that codes the soul in empathy. Let me explain. Music, the right frequency of music, the right frequency of voice, the right painting, the right colors, the right sculpture will send chills down your spine, will actually activate and trigger empathy, emotions of deep love for an object. You see? And that's why art in all of its form is so incredibly important. And this is why I attribute my empathy to my exposure to art when I was a child, in all its form. When we lived in Paris, on Tuesday would be a new play opening. By Thursday, if you couldn't afford to go, by Thursday night, on the TV set would be the play. And everyone in France would watch that play, right? Well, not everyone, but most people would sit with their family and watch the play. And museums, fine art, and I don't mean the kind of art that you are made to feel stupid. Like, for example, one of the famous pieces that I know, well, infamous, is a nail on a plywood with a string, and that's called art. And it's not art. That's a corruption of culture. You and I both know that's a piece of shit. That's crap. I am going to tell you, and I really, hang on, let me, because my mind is moving back and forth in various thoughts, which is how the human mind works. Maybe you don't think like that, but I do. I'm thinking of how seeing the great masters from the age of, I don't know, being a baby carriage, created a visual aesthetics and encoded my brain with activations that I'm still enjoying today. And that's why I can walk through the woods, because I've seen great masters capture paintings of woods and oceans and things of that, or just a simple tree, like the famous mulberry tree by Van Gogh, which is at the Norton Simon Museum. And I can actually walk through nature, right, and see the colored sky, right, and totally feel the thrill and the chill running through my body and activating me. They actually are like DNA intertwined, the paintings coming alive, the nature being captured on oil, on canvas. It's just, so when you are raised around this type of energy, right, something in you is so, there's an elevation of realizing how important these are. I don't know if you were raised on poetry, but when you're in school in Europe, most schools, I would say by the age of 5, you're reciting poetry in front of the class. And you may not even understand at the age of 5 what you're saying, but you are actually being trained to remember words, intertwined for the sole pleasure of saying it out loud, or for reading, grazing your fingers across the letters. There was a time when all the cafes that I went to had a poetry night where people would take the mic and speak, poetry. And it was spoken word, lyrical poetry, haiku, whatever, right? And I feel as if this, ever since COVID came down the pike, we've lost our way purposely, because you see, civilization is not kind, but culture is. Culture embraces the human soul. Civilized systems don't. The Industrial Revolution is a good example of that. So when you are exposing your children to art, you now teach them how to be grateful easily to a lot of things. The sky, the clouds, the wind, a tree whose leaves have fallen, the grain and texture of the tree trunk. All of these things come to life because it's almost like a seesaw of experiences between watching art and showing your child why this piece is good, and why it's famous, and why. And so the eye of the child grows up with a sense of aesthetic, of balance, of texture, of love for what you would call the mundane, a painting of, say, a rocking chair under a light, and that's all it is. And understanding the beauty, there's a Zen quality to that. You see what I'm saying? And so gratitude is something that is nurtured and curated by parents, by culture, you see? And that's why we have kids now who can't walk out into nature and they feel no healing. In fact, some kids actually, as young as 8, have said they don't like nature. They don't like to be outside. And we've normalized that. I know for a fact, because I'm seeing parents say, yeah, my kid doesn't like to go outside and be in nature. They don't like the sand. They don't like the texture of the sand, which, I'm sorry, that's not normal. That's actually not normal at all. To not want to feel the sand beneath your bare feet, to feel the texture of change beneath your soles of your feet as you approach the wet sand, as you walk into the lapping waves, as it moves around your ankles and calves and sinking, your feet sinking as you step deeper, as you walk sideways parallel to the ocean, watching the waves, smelling the sea spray, feeling it on your skin, hearing the seagulls, hearing the waves, hearing the sand, catching a sand dollar. Like, that's sensuality in action. That's why we incarnated here on this planet, for all of our senses to explode. You can open your mouth and breathe through your mouth and taste the brine, taste the salt, get the iodine. And there are kids that don't like sand, and there are kids that don't like art, and there are kids, they just want their little box in their hands, be it a phone, a tablet, or screen, some kind of screen. Their world is in a matrix. And as a parent, not to give your child the ability to connect to nature. A child by the age of 8 should know, I feel really bad, Mom, I'm depressed, or I feel sad, I feel lonely, I feel whatever. Their first point of reference to heal immediately should be to take off their shoes, walk out into the grass, and lean their bodies on a tree or lay down on Pachamama and wait. They should all, every kid in the world should know that's where you get your healing. Not to mention hugs by mommy and daddy, but regardless, at least that they know how to self-soothe through nature. They know that nature is their mother, their great mother, their sister, their auntie, their beloved. And we're not teaching this. We're not teaching it. We're not actually actively, and elders know this. Elders know this because I'm seeing posts of people saying, is it really true that you could actually be on your bike all day long and play in the blocks, and then when it got dark, then you got home? Yeah, that was true. That's elders' story. That's what elders experienced. I have experiences of being like 8.5 years old, climbing a pear tree with other kids in Switzerland. And this, because, all the trees in Europe, most of the trees in Europe are females. That means they bear fruit and they're wild. So this was a wild pear tree on a hike. And I remember the chattering of kids, and we're all on different branches, staggered. Imagine, just close your eyes and see it. All these 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds on a tree, and we're eating pears, ripened by the sun, juices on literally going down our faces, and we're laughing, and we're eating one pear after another, glutting on pears, and climbing down and continuing our hike. Yes, that was true. That is normal. And we need to demand to normalize these experiences for our children, or else what we're raising is Neuralink patients. We are raising babies to become adults in boxes with coding and wiring and steel and metal cages, and they'll never know it's steel and metal cages because they've got goggles with an adventure that's been created by, where they're in other planets and doing other things instead of opening their third eye. You see how it all intertwines, culture? How art is a very subtle, sweet spirit that walks beside us as we grow up? How museums should be in every fucking city, every hamlet in this country. If it's not a great master, your local yokel artist should be displayed as a museum that's free for students and children, where people can look at black and white photos and paintings and whatever else has been created by local artists. Every fucking village, hamlet, tiny city should have a museum, permanently displaying, through the mercy and charity of artists, their work. And can you buy them? Of course you can. And a new painting is hung in its place. But this is problematic because we are an arid land with no culture. And unless you live in certain cities, there is no culture. There is no art. Or the art is pedestrian and stupid. Like there's a famous artist who's French called Duchamp, who was able to hustle the artistic community by selling toilets and bidets as art. That's not art, okay? Because it's not going to send a chill down your back, nor is it going to make you get well up in, you're not going to be welling up with tears. You're going to be looking at it going, they're taking the piss. Like they're treating me like I'm a fucking idiot. Or you're going to feel stupid. Well, I'm not educated in art. No, you don't have to be educated in art. Even a fucking 3-year-old would know that's shit. In fact, is that a toilet, Mom? I need to go pee, a 3-year-old would say. And you'd laugh going, well, not that toilet. It doesn't have the plumbing. Do you get me? Don't get played. And gratitude Gratitude, you'll be able to manifest it on your own in that sense of what I first discussed in the beginning of this live. But can you kind of see how some of this stuff is related? How children are not being taught poetry at the age of in third grade, second grade, first grade. How come? Why not? Why not? Why aren't kids being read poetry? Why aren't kids being asked to read a poem out loud? Why not? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it creates deep, deep self reflection, deep connection with words, deep understanding of the beauty of how words are intertwined and literally stitched together to create an emotion that's so evocative, so visceral, that even the child may not understand that, but it feels deeply. It connects deeply. And I think we are actually raising many, many children, in spite of some of these powerful starseeds coming in and being lobotomized through chemicals, and you know what I mean by that. Many of them will still come through the cracks, like dandelions through the asphalt, but many of them won't. Many of them will be fully fucking lost in the matrix, in the machine. And it's a machine. And the machine is getting heavier and clunkier. And yet it's giving illusions. It's getting very good at giving you the illusions that you're in the good place. You're where you're supposed to be. And I think that to actively start working on art, because I remember before COVID, at least where I lived, and I lived in Pasadena and South Pasadena, California. And in Pasadena, there are two museums. One is called the Norton Simon Museum, which has the mulberry tree by Van Gogh. It has a couple Rodins. It has Chagall. It's got some shit. Okay, actually, considering how small it is, it's a fucking incredible museum. On the bottom floor, there are all these Buddhas. And my son and I would go and see the Buddhas. We'd start with the Buddhas first, that are absolutely stunning. And then we go upstairs to the 18th century corridor or the 17th century art corridor. And I'm having flashes of some of the paintings and charcoals and things that I saw, still having flashes. But I remember one of the favorite things I loved about the mulberry tree, and probably a heartbreaking understanding by Van Gogh, was that when he painted it, you see the linen, the Belgian linen canvas behind it. You can see it because he's running out of paint. He's running out of paint. He's painting this magnificent tree, the mulberry tree, and he's trying to be economical but with the paint, so you can see the canvas shining through here and there, peeking out here and there. And it talks about poverty in that moment. It talks about lack. It talks about, even though there's lack and poverty, there's still the desire to create something beautiful, to capture it on canvas in oil. And that's a story you tell your child. And it's a story I told my child many times. In the Huntington Botanical Garden, one of the best botanical gardens on the fucking planet, I'm not kidding. I had a membership that I would buy every year, and it was dear. It was like $125 a year. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're struggling as a family, it was. But that was something we had to buy. And there, they have the desert, they have the English garden, it goes on and on and on. The koi, the pond, the koi pond, and so on and so forth. The Chinese garden, the Japanese garden. I could go on and on and on. And it also had the blue boy, the pink girl, Pinky, and some other sculptures and paintings from the great masters. They were concentrating more on the 18th century, it looked like 19th century. But when my point to you is that even poor, you could go and see some of the great masters and walk and sit by the great gardens that had been cultivated for like over 100 years and so forth. And art creates decent human beings. And art creates a respect for art. And when we grow human beings that respect art, they respect culture. And culture and poets and rebel poets like Rimbaud and other great poets from the beatnik generations that were actually influenced by Rimbaud. Rimbaud was gay. And he literally put foot to ass to the romantic poets. He basically destroyed romantic poetry, which was filled with hypocrisy and lies about the human experience. And Rimbaud, by the time he was 19, had written every poem, and he stopped writing. He died at 37. But he was 16 when he began, and literally created literary revolution, which is extraordinary. So there again, we see that young people can come through, like Jim Carroll, when you read his book, The Basketball Diaries, which he wrote. But I mean, his experience as a young 16-year-old on the streets of New York, and how he has to survive, and his addiction to the horse is pretty. It's probably, in my opinion, one of the most important books in American literature. One of the most. But I wonder sometimes when I think of Under Road by Jack Kerouac, or like him, like, Jim Carroll's Basketball Diaries, or Rambo, would they be published today? Would they be published today? Would Van Gogh be understood today? Because, I've actually seen some Van Goghs walking around. I've actually seen their work. And I've recognized not just Van Goghs, I've recognized some Renoir. I've actually recognized some de la Tour. People who can paint. I don't mean people who can paint like a Cadillac Fender. I don't mean those people. I mean people who paint like the old masters from the 17th, 18th century who could not get arrested, who are not being shown in museums, who are struggling to pay their rent. And yet they are the very reincarnation of these great masters. I'm sure of it. For all I know, Da Vinci is walking around fucking trying to figure out how to make a living. Because once you've been like that, once you've held the flame of passion and fire, when you come back in 3D, you're going to want to do it again. You're going to want to refine it again. So I know for a fact they're walking the planet. I also know for a fact that they're not being celebrated. Instead, we're celebrating children. We're celebrating 10-year-olds who are being hustled into our realms, being told, oh, they're little Picassos. No, they're fucking not. They're fucking not. Because in those paintings, I see no passion. I see parroting. I see big canvases with splashes of paint. That's not Picasso. Because if you look at Picasso and you see his painting called War, that's the side of it looks like a canvas damn near half the fucking size of a building. It makes you want to cry. When you see Basquiat's work, thank God for Andy Warhol, who took him on his wing, or else we would have lost Basquiat to the machine. But now the machine has decided to sell us, and it's been going on for a while, trust me. I mean, from the 1950s, in this revolution of art, which many of the elite, so-called educated PhD art curators and collectors are going to tell me, but Tony, you don't understand. That piece of wood with the nail and the thread, that's really art. That's like, it's what it's saying. It's being called, it's trying to say ... So as an artist myself, art that doesn't shake you up, art that doesn't make you think and stop and stare. There was a play called Art with Alan Alda. It was a white canvas. It was white. And it was a whole play based on what is art. That's not art. You've just spackled a canvas with white paint, and you've done it, I don't know, in various types of strokes. That's not art. Art is something like, there's a famous painting by de la Tour called Mary Magdalene. And it was my favorite painting in the Louvre Museum. And she's sitting pregnant, very obviously pregnant, with one hand on her belly, one hand on the skull, and a candle light. And it's a little bigger than life size. And the light emanating on her veins of her hands, it looks like at any moment she can step out, but it is the emotion of that painting. And he did various versions of that same type, the theme. And I would actually stand in front of it for like 10, 15 minutes. Every time we went to the Louvre, I went there. The Mona Lisa never got me. But my mom told me why it was famous. She also told me why the Van Gogh, the wheat field was famous. Because if you actually stood in front of it, the optical illusion of the wheat bending by the wind, it looked like as if the wheat field was moving like an ocean in motion. Somehow he had captured the movement of the wheat field on canvas. It was incredible. And I wonder today, because there are incredible, like I said, painters who have incarnated, who are walking this planet as we speak, who are not being celebrated, who are being ignored. And that breaks my heart, because what we're doing is we're stealing for our new generation. We're stealing from them. We're actually abusing our artists, our culture, and we are abusing our children by not exposing them to all of this beautiful, delicious nectar of the soul expressing itself with a paintbrush, with clay, with marble, with bronze, with books, letters, poetry, music, dance. Our kids are not being exposed to that at all. And what's interesting, and this should actually red flag it for you, what's interesting is the elite. The elite expose their children to that. Now, why do you think that is? Is it maybe because for the last 30 minutes of what I've just expressed, that it does ignite light codes of ascension into the brain of human beings when they see art, when they're exposed to all of it, what I've just expressed? Is it because the elite know that to expose your children to that makes them more rounded human beings, more sure-footed, more confident, more able to be in healing states? Because you see, art does that. It heals people. And so that's why it's so easy for me to wake up gratitude at the sky, at my blankets, because I've actually seen a painting of Van Gogh, who painted his bedroom, the yellow bedroom, with the chair in the bed and the side table to pay his landlord. Does that make sense? Because I've seen examples of a bowl of fruit by Renoir. It's just a bowl of fruit. And so now I see beauty in my bowl of fruit, in my kitchen, with carrots and onions and apples, and it's a mixture. It's almost creating art in my little kitchen. Because I saw it when I was 6. And because I saw the value of the most mundane household items becoming art. Because it was painted with passion. There's a great movie with Andy Garcia called Modigliani. And why aren't they showing movies like that to kids in junior high school? Why aren't they showing this to kids who are 13, 14 years old? Why not? I think you know why. Because when you actually get to listen to men, painters, talk and fight and laugh and drink and get drunk about art, it shakes the soul who watches those stories unfold. It creates such empathy and passion and an awakening and activation that who knows where that child will become when they're adults, when they're exposed to such power. Who knows? But our technology is stealing from our children. It's stealing from ourselves. It's not giving us what we thought it would give us. It's actually stripping our ability to sit in repose in front of a painting. When was the last time you sat in front of a painting, just sat and admired it and went into and maybe even your brain, your eyes just clouded over and you went into these silent places, and then your monkey mind awoke and said things, and then you focused back on the painting And then you went into other realms. It was almost like you were being hypnotized. When was the last time? I'll go first. The last time I was able to do that was in 2014. Because where I moved to had no art. Because by the time I came back to where there was art, COVID locked us all out. But I remember going to the Getty, which was never as good as the Norton Simon Museum in Pasadena. Whoever lives in Pasadena, you should be going there 3 times a week. I used to go there 3 to 4 times a week with my kid in a stroller, with my kid holding my hand, with my young 10, 12-year-old boy. He grew up in those places. Because when you're broke, art is your refuge. That's the beauty of giving art to everybody. And when I talked to my friend Andromeda about these Italian workmen coming off work, construction work, in their construction clothes, dusty, nasty, dirty hands, and sitting back to watch an opera or a play or a ballet, to just reset themselves at night and then to go get an espresso, maybe a pizza or whatever, and then go home and then start all over again, wash and repeat. That's culture. That is not civilization. That's culture in action. And I think once we separate the two, we'll realize that civilization being the Industrial Revolution, which is the boot in your fucking face, blinding you, muzzling you. And that culture is what artists and rebellious artists have always given us as an exit door to our own evolution, our own liberation. And usually poets, painters are usually 10 to 15 years ahead of civilization. They're the ones who create a new age. And for some reason, I don't know, we're not showing. I mean, I love how people show movies in, universities and colleges and city colleges and high schools and shit like that. Why, a U.S. teacher should know. You should know better. Why aren't you pushing movies like that? Why aren't you showing movies like that so we can create a better society, better sets of human beings? Because really right now, what I'm watching? Little posts of little bitch Karens who are fucking telling people that Snap is not a career. No shit, bitch. No one wants to have Snap. We'd prefer making 6 to 7 figures. Art creates empathy. No art, the arid land wasteland of the mad mask consciousness of most people, creates Karens. Because you see, painters would show, for example, Yeshua being pulled down from the cross. Many of these painters would show starvation. They would show farmers around a table with just potatoes. Forgot who that painting, I think it was Renoir who did a painting with, I think, farmers around a table. I might be wrong. But I'm having flashes of paintings literally shudder through my brain, showing me the visuals of not just wars and Greek mythology represented, and Yeshua being pulled down from the cross or being held, or the Sabine women, the women being grabbed and kidnapped by the Romans to establish Rome as we know it, but also poverty. Poverty was shown. The mundane life of a farmer taking his horse plow into the stable, and on and on and on from the great masters. And so that's why we have so many Karens, I could say that, because they've never seen a moment of pain captured on an oil canvas and painted 300-400 years ago. They've never seen one. And I think once we understand how we are losing our humanity through technology and turning our backs on the very people who can bring us back to our humanity, which are artists. Once we value artists above technology and above billionaires, once we value our culture and the various merging of cultures and the sharing of various belief systems and cultures, once we do that, that's part of the 5D. 5D is art. And I honestly believe that. What, you think 5D is not art? Oh, let me bring you back. Weaving is a form of art. Weaving. Knitting is a form of art. Creating a rocking chair is a form of art. If you watch the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson, what is he doing? First scene, he's trying to fucking build a rocking chair. And he's trying to, and he's frustrated because he can't. But art is a rocking chair. That's a form of art. Carving wood. Painting the ceiling and doing a mural is a form of art. It is art. But why is it that we have murals, okay, but we don't have museums, galleries open to the public? That's my point. And let's not confuse murals, because murals aren't giving people what they need. It's a two-dimensional system that doesn't, and it's usually about massive grief, but it doesn't heal the eye. I can compare. I've seen tons of murals. They don't do shit for me. But art, like paintings, it does something. And the kind of murals that were done by the great masters on the ceilings of 16th century palaces, they're beautiful, but they don't do much for me. So it's the paintings, aren't they? It's the paintings. It's the sculptures. One of the great sculptures copied by the Romans from the Greeks is called the Fallen Gaul. Gaul, France. It's a man who has a torque necklace around his neck, and he's fallen, and he's dying, and he's nude, and he's dying. It's one of the great sculptures. It's a fucking emotional, because it's a man, a young man, a beautiful man who's losing his life. He's bleeding out. And I could go on and on, and there are incredible water fountains, incredible water fountains in the squares of Rome, in France, in Versailles, and the sound of water trickling down the sculptures of nude nymphs and masculine gods, and it's really kind of cool. It's really, and there's something healing about this, just healing in just its presence. So gratitude, I think, yeah, many of us are born with it. We innately have it. But I think it's curated. It's cultured into our very cells through a type of gardening of the consciousness of this rich field called the human mind. We know that we can take children and harm them through brainwashing them and becoming cold, hard killers. But we also can take beautiful children and turn it into the caretakers and gardeners of this planet. Creating a garden is an art form. It is art in action. If you've never been to Pasadena, California, and if you are like lucky to live in California, just for that, should be your go-to. You like get off the plane and go there. Like get a hotel there, an Airbnb there, and go there and spend 2 days there. And then go to the Norton Simon Museum. The Getty never got me. I never was grabbed by the Getty ever. The irises by Van Gogh, some of the other believe me, I've been there. And no, pain in the ass to get to, pain in the ass, and the art, it wasn't even that good, believe it or not. So it's kind of funny. What's revered as great when some of these little museums are actually better. It's been a long time since I've gone to the New York City museums. The last time I went, I was a teenager, and I'd gone to see it was a whole Picasso exhibit, and there you got to see his evolution. He had painted his grandmother in a wheelchair, And he had been influenced by African art, Cubism, and so forth. And so he began, he was one of the forefathers of modern art as we know it before he got bastardized by God knows what that other movement is. And I'm sure somebody with a PhD can tell me, but you're not going to sell me that a toilet is an art form, or that a string and a nail on a plyboard is art. I'll never bend the knee to that bullshit. And I think that the bastardization of art in America has been by design. There was going to be erotic line drawings imported to be shown to New York. Erotic line drawings of Picasso, by Picasso. And there was such volleying back and forth of would it be appropriate because it was erotic and whatever, that the French threw their arms up and said, fuck it. And they took it to Canada. We were never given the opportunity to see these line drawings in America because of the puritanical bullshit of the system, the machine. Can you imagine? And erotica is not porn. And that's something we have to establish. Erotica is erotica. Porn is porn. I think you know the difference. I hope you do. I draw. If you look at my work, which there's a link on my link tree, you'll see erotica. I do a lot of erotic art. And they're line drawings. You'll see. And by no means am I a fine artist. And by no means was I trained classically. But my eye was trained by the great masters in my visits to these museums. I've been so, lucky to experience. But ultimately, am I lucky? I'm living the contrast that maybe you weren't raised on. I'm telling you that we need little buildings turned into galleries of our local yokel painters, photographers, sculptors, pottery makers, textile workers, and we need to display it, and we need to now normalize that. So that when our artists die, we can, unless they have family who are going to take care of those canvases, right? We can come in these little hammocks, villages, whatever. We can come in and make sure that these paintings are protected. Maybe even sold to collectors and bring the money back into our system, right? Whatever. But I can tell you this, as a woman who grew up with art around me every step I took, and then not having it since 2014, I can tell you that this is not good for the soul. I can tell you this, having experienced both the joy and the nectar of it and the drought. It's been a drought for me. So if it's a drought for me, then I know what it's doing to you who've never experienced it, or to your children who are not experiencing any of what I've discussed. None of it. Not even close. It's harming us as a people in this country. And I live in a town that's just so fucking red, it's stupid, okay? And I might as well talk to a wall. I'd probably get a lot more feedback from that. So I'm going to tell you right off, I'm not going to even attempt it, because I'm one person who knows that pick your fights. But you might be in a system, in an environment that is very much loving and about beauty and aesthetics, who might actually understand where you're coming from, where you could actually take a wing of a building, a wing of a school, and start inviting artists to hang their work permanently. I think that's important. I really do. I can't tell you enough how important that's going to be. And where you go, hey baby, let's go. Where are we going? We're going to go on a hike. But before we go on a hike, we're going to look at the Buddhas, or we're going to go look at some work. We're going to look at some work. And then we're going to go on a hike or a walk. But we're going to go there first. And then you can discuss the work with your child, your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, nephews, whatever. But the reason why our kids are bored by nature and art is because they have no fucking idea what they're looking at. They have no idea how to connect with art. They have no connection with the living, breathing planet. They don't know how to put their forehead on a tree trunk. They don't know how to put their palms on a tree trunk. They don't know how to connect with the sky. They don't know how to lay their bodies down on the earth and to listen, to speak telepathically the planet Earth, their great mother, the home they've had in every incarnation, and say, tell me what I need to know. And then sit there on their backs listening to the telepathic response of the Pachamama, of Mother Earth. But they don't know how to do it. Some will know, and then it will be lobotomized by society's technology. The machine will grind it out of them. But if you help them figure it out, if you help them experience that every step of the way until they're out of your care, until they're in college or living their own life, they will always know what to do to heal themselves. They will all, you know what I mean? And still, in spite of that, there will be such harm and hurt by the system that we live under right now that they might still get addicted, but at least they'll have a sense of, I can, maybe I can go in the fields and maybe I can cry there. Maybe I can do this, that, and the other. Nature is an absolute must for every human being on the planet. It is not a conversation. It is a, well, whatever. No. It's a must. That's why Central Park in New York City is such an important park. Anyway, I think that as we move into the darkest part of this timeline, because it's going to get darker before the dawn, I want you to think about what I said. I want you to write down what your ideas would be as a patron to the arts, as a curator to the arts, as to bringing art into your community. You know what I mean? Think about it. Especially if you've decided that this is your community, you're not moving, you're not going anywhere, this is where you're going to raise your kids, and then I think you should, probably work with other people. And I'm always meeting artists constantly. It's insane. I met an old man who lived in his van in Ojai, California, who had these canvases the size of fridge doors and fucking half walls of houses, right? And when he died, it broke my heart. His art it was in storage, and what happened to it? Was it burned? Was it put in a dump? Was it literally put to a dump? Where did it go? His entire life of paintings, from the time he started painting in his 20s to the time he died in his late 80s, where did it go? And yeah, that's a concern. I have a friend right now who has done some of the great paintings. She's a Chagall in incarnation. She's incredible. She's absolutely incredible. She used to hang her paintings in restaurants. This was 2005. When things were still in color, when the world was still pulsing with some hope and excitement before they fucked us. I mean, before they showed us how they've been fucking us all the time, but they were still letting us breathe and live. And anyway, so she was selling her paintings, and they'd been hanging in really high restaurants. And one of them was called the Barefoot in, I forgot where exactly in LA, but anyway. And she'd also sold her work at Tommy Chang's, which was a famous chef. And her work was going for $1,200 to $2,000, and people were buying it. They were having a great meal, having a good bottle of wine, and going, "Fuck, I love that piece. $1,200, yeah, put on my credit card." Walk out with a fucking painting on their arm after having a good meal. That was how she paid her rent, and that's gone. COVID lockdown literally stripped us into a world of gray tones. Gray tones. We might not be living in a black and white TV, but it sure in the fuck feels like it. So I want you to, do what you can. Do the great work. Go out there, create your fucking culture, man, because it won't be handed to you. I'll tell you that. It's something you're going to have to work with. Let me look at your comments because I'm really interested in what you've said. If you've said anything that I'd like to share with you. I was the queen of finding cheap options of culture as a single mama with my children. It's important. Thank you, Red Phoenix, for sharing that. Going to check out the Cosmos Garden when I make my way to Cali. The Huntington Garden is incredible, botanical. It's one. I mean, my uncle is from France. He's from Bordeaux, and when I took him to the Huntington Botanical, he was fucking blown away, blown the fuck away by the diversity. I wish they would do a Persian garden because it's from the Persians that we cultured roses. I don't know if you know that, but they have the Chinese garden, which is exquisite, and they have a Chinese tea room, and they have the English tea room. It's incredible. Like, I couldn't afford it all the time because it was so fucking expensive, but I've taken my son to his tea for the high tea in the botanical garden, the Huntington Botanical. My family live out there in Pasadena, and I'm visiting next week. I'll definitely go to the museum. Yeah, so go to the Norton Simon, and then go downstairs to the Buddhas. You'll see all the Buddhas; they're incredible. And then make sure you go to the Huntington Botanical Garden in San Marino, California. You'll see. I think teachers are told what to teach. Maybe some good ones submit material to show. I don't know. Aaliyah will, okay, whatever. Saw a couch that was torn up and you could build the pieces to what you wanted. The art was $700. Wow, that's cool. I didn't think that was art. Let me see what else. Art is interesting. I mean, there was a painting of a nude woman, and it was a T-shirt. I swear to God, I'll never forget this. It was a T-shirt, a place, because I was having T-shirts made. I had been commissioned to do art piece called Firenze, which they were all going to Florence. It was a college, and they were all going to Florence. And the professor had commissioned me to do the art for her, so for their T-shirt. So I did. So I'm at this T-shirt place, and above the wall is a woman that's nude with black hair spilling over. She's got dark brown skin, gorgeous woman, and her hair is spilling over the pillows, and she's like wrapped in sheets. It's somewhat nude, but not really. And then and you're seeing it from the angle of like standing over the pillows, looking down at her. It was incredible. It was $1,200. I was sick, sick, sick. I couldn't afford to buy the painting. Sick. It made me sick because it was so fucking brilliant. And the poor girl never realized it was a woman who had painted it. The poor girl never realized because I told them, can you let her know this is fucking amazing? But I doubt they even, because they were busy fucking, selling silk screening on T-shirts and shit. I doubt she ever knew. But I wanted that painting so fucking bad. But I've bought paintings from artists since I was a kid, and I grew up with my father when we lived in Hong Kong. My father commissioning Chinese artists for from paintings that we had commissioned, and then he also used to commission this guy who was a painter in Paris. And so, and where did he learn that? I have no fucking idea who taught him that. But again, this was before the internet, and this is when people read books. This is when people read books about authors all over the world. This is when people published huge books on art and the art world and sculptures and this and that and the other. And so I think, though, and plus, again, he lived in New Jersey, so he would have probably gone to New York to see some work. He was very much into the aesthetics. So he never told me how he learned it, but he did learn it. And I think when he went to Europe, he saw the museums, and he saw, actually, fuck the museums, no offense to say that, but every step you take in Paris, there's a sculpture. It's either nude or it's not nude or whatever. And so you grow up with nudity in carved into marble, carved into stone, and in bronze. And it is not a concern. It is not, oh my God, cover it up. Oh my God. It's like none of that bullshit. And you go to Rome, same thing. And you end up just having an appreciation. And then you walk into Catholic churches and the incredible detail of stained glass windows and how it shines through through the glass, the light, and how it does its magic thing, and it just blows your mind, and you feel such at peace, and you sit at the pews, you light a candle, and you don't have to be Catholic to like enjoy the Zen moment of that time, just as you would sitting in a Japanese Zen garden and escaping your life, just as sitting around the Buddhas at Norton Simon, for example, and just going, wow, I'm gonna just absorb this peace of these Buddhas. I'm just going to sit here and enjoy myself. So It's very interesting how important it is for us humans, to the point where we see examples with Stonehenge and Easter Island and these fucking the Giza pyramids and so forth. We need art. You know what I mean? Thank you, Red Mama Yeti. And you are a moderator, right? Hang on. Yeah, you're a moderator. I don't know if you know that, but you're a moderator. Thank you for saying that. So yeah, so I'm gonna upload this live. Please check out my other lives on the masculine and how the masculine. Many of our problems with the masculine stems from the fact that their worth is connected to their account, their checking account, and that corrupt reality for our masculines is destroying some really good men. We are also, because of this, a connection of the wallet, your checking account, connected to your manhood. We are creating, and what's coming out of that is the poisonous tree of weak men, weak fucks, weak men, and we have a lot of weak men who are crying, complaining, angry at women, hate women, turning men and having men become women. I think you know that movement going on with the Groypers or some other little clan that's going on that came out when Charlie Kirk got annihilated from this planet violently, I'll add. And there's this whole underground thing of male hating fucks who the evolution of that comes from the connection of greed. Greed is good. And when greed is good, and when women also decide that what they want in a high value man, high value woman, it's like there's no such thing. Money is not connected to high value. Mary Magdalene in my book was high value, but she probably didn't have a lot of money. I know she came from a good family. You could say the debutante was a hippie that ran after, like left the clan and follow Yeshua, right? But Yeshua is a high value man. Buddha was a high value man. He had a begging bowl. Krishna Radha, a high value couple, but they didn't have coin to make them have a high value. So what is high value? You see? So here and there, I'll be exploring that to some extent, but I would like you to go on my YouTube channel and go visit those 3 last videos I just posted. Just go on, in order, and listen to what I'm saying about this, because I really want to explore that. Because if you are the mothers of sons, you need to be part of the re-architecting of the template of 5D that no longer connects your checking account with value. Money will always come, my friend. It will always land at your feet. But high value is your spiritual and emotional integrity and your sovereignty. Okay? Because right now, pretty much every billionaire I see, I actually have absolutely zero respect for them. Zero. I don't look up to any of them. And you couldn't put a pew to my head to lay down in bed with any of them for any amount of money. So what does that tell you? Money's not important to me. Not in that way. Money is a tool. And many of you who, if you had money, you would actually be the solution, not the problem. And I know that for a fact. Okay. I know some of you listening to me are listening to learn, to lean in, and I'm so honored that you want to hear my thoughts. I'm honored. And maybe this will also catapult your thoughts and your expansiveness in new realms to understand what is happening to our cultures, our culture as human beings, the cultures that you and I have explored in every incarnation we've had. We've experienced so many cultures. Before we were ever under the boot of civilization. What is civilization? What has it done? What does it mean? Because you see, to recap what I said in my last live, the Native Americans were considered uncivilized. But my question is, were they? Really? Because they had a culture, though. Do we need civilization the way it's been sold to us? I'd rather have culture. I don't think it's the same. It never occurred to me until this week, to be honest. It's not something I've been musing on for a long time. It's something I'm kicking around in my head going, wait, hang on. Hang on. I prefer culture over this thing, this box, this black and white TV set they're trying to force us into. I'd rather have culture because culture has color, expansiveness, joy, sensuality, passion, urgency to create. The very thing that God had when God created us. It was desire, it was love, it was passion. What, you think we're the image of God and we don't have those emotional passions as well as a fractal of that power called God? What the fuck are we doing here? Somebody told me the universe was neutral. I said, no, actually, it's not neutral. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm not going to cater. This was a potential client who I doubt will ever be a client because I'm not here to kiss ass. No, it's not neutral. It's pulsing with love. Pulsing with love. Money does not give you wisdom, obviously. Money does not give you wisdom. But if you've got money and you're wise, God, the shit you can do. Money is neutral. The universe is not. The universe is watching. The universe is us, in the body and out of the body. And if we are the image of God, source, then we cannot be allowed to be pushed into a machine. We have to understand and start looking at every single thing, like literally lift every rock to see how do we get fucked to be corralled to this black and white TV set they want us to live in. We need to figure it out. And we need to figure it out personally, privately, and publicly, sharing our thoughts, our musings with the world so that everyone can start saying, wait, hang on, I never thought of that. Wait, hey, whoa, yeah, that's what's happening here. And the more we have these dialogues, like Thanksgiving dinner, in my opinion, should not be about Aunt Mary and Uncle Bob. It should be realities, the nature of reality, the nature of systems of oppression, and the nature of the systems where we thrived as a people with various cultures. And we were called primitive, pagan, whatever the fuck they were trying to, remember, who called us that? Who called us that? And why? So we need to go back to the source and excavate when it all unraveled and how it finally is giving us the final chokehold and how to get out of it. So Thanksgiving dinner, I hope it's fun for you, because if it's fucking mundane, I'd actually push myself from the table and go, I can't have these mundane. What are we doing here? We're gonna have the same fucking conversations every Thanksgiving. Let's have some real conversations. And yeah, the kids can listen. Oh, it's too advanced. No, it's not. These are ancient souls in young avatars. Never forget that. Send you much love on your journey. I'll upload this. Hopefully you'll go check it out. Please comment there. Much love. Namaste. Be well.